lesson 23. This course hasn't been interrupted yet by any lockdowns. We're really blessed. The previous two courses both were interrupted. We're lucky. Let's hope it stays that way. Lesson 23, Hatha Yoga Pradipika, Chapter 1, Sutra 1. It might be of interest if you read the foreword. The foreword in the book gives you some impression of my teacher Ajita in our background, our approach to yoga. Okay, Sutra 1. I salute the primeval Lord Shiva, who taught Parvati the Hatha Yoga Vidya, which is as a stairway for those who wish to attain the lofty Raja Yoga. There are many pieces of information hidden in this sutra. First of all, the author states his intention with the writing of this book. He doesn't say, here I am, Svatmarama, the great writer. He starts by an invocation to gain inspiration. So he doesn't even claim this book to be himself. He claims it to be from a higher source. We live in a time where everything that we do, if possible, we want to make money out of it. And because of ego, we need to have a label on it that says, this is mine. This book was not written for commercial purposes. This book was written for the betterment of humankind, for the betterment of the world. That is how all holy books start. Then we talked about holy last week, remember? The purpose of declaring something to be of divine source, something to be godly or sacred. The reason is simply to indicate you're looking at something here of significance, something that is important. So no reason to start worshipping or have all kinds of rituals, because that just totally ignores the essence or the purpose of what it is about. And the essence of what this is about is very practical and of incredible value, as it is really transforming the human being. So the author, instead of claiming the book for himself, he dedicates it to Lord Shiva, who taught Parvati the Hatha Yoga Vidya. Vidya is knowledge, wisdom. The wisdom of sun, moon. Yoga is control, sun, moon is yin and yang. The two opposing energies that are responsible for the creation of life, that have a tendency to be unstable, leading to it leads to violence, misbehavior, etc. So the control of those opposing forces, the knowledge of, that is basically what this book is about. And he says that this is a stairway for those who wish to attain the lofty Raja Yoga. When we talk about yoga these days in modern times, we talk about it as if it is something superficial, as if it is something outside of ourselves. But yoga is life. Raja Yoga is higher form of life. That is life with the addition of consciousness, the characteristics of the crown chakra. So this book is designed, if you follow it properly with proper guidance in a systematic way, it leads to that transformation where consciousness opens up and you become a Raja, or you become a natural leader, a manager, a boss, a king, queen. But in a natural way, not because you have a label on your shirt that says I'm the boss, but because you behave like one. You have the qualities to function like one. And that function through the crown chakra manifests through the heart. The story goes, tradition has it, this is a story you find in every culture. In Korea you have the story of Tangun. Tangun is the arch father of the Korean people. In the Bible you have Adam and Eve. Here you have Lord Shiva, who is teaching his wife Parvati yoga on a beach in a place that is somewhere in the area of modern day Sri Lanka. And the story goes that there was a fish, Matcha, who came to the service and overheard those divine teachings, which transformed him to become not only the first human being, but he became royal. He became Matchendra, the king of mankind. Doesn't it strike you as odd that it starts with a fish? It's very impressive that those ancient people realized, without all the modern technology that we have, like carbon dating and what have you, on fossils, that they realized that all life originated in the sea, which we know now and we can prove with all the modern technology that we have. Ancient people didn't have that. So that sheer contemplation that helped people realize the origin of life. So it started in the sea, but because of Matcha overhearing the divine science of Hatha Yoga Vidya, life transformed from the sea to land. That is what is embedded in this story, in this traditional story. Very interesting. One of the purposes of this introduction, this invocation, is to draw your attention, because it means that what follows is divine, is of divine nature, is of great value. In chapter 1, there's not only asana, but there's also the yamas and the niyamas. Did you draw the link between the yamas and the niyamas and the 10 commandments of the Bible? Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, that is not yours, etc. You know how the 10 commandments came about? You know the story of Moses bringing his people through the desert for 40 years, wandering through the desert? Try to imagine what he had to deal with, Moses, the leader of those people. With all kinds of people they're stealing, they're lying, they're killing each other, raping. Conflict all the time. And when there is conflict, it's very difficult to achieve something. That applies to your family, it applies to a company, it applies to a country. So Moses thought, oh my God, how can I handle this? And the story goes that he went up onto the mountain and he fasted for 40 days. And he then came back, after 40 days he came back with 2 tablets, each containing 5 commandments. And he said, those are God's words. He didn't say it's mine. He didn't say, I invented 10 rules that we have to live by. You know why? Because people would not have respected that if he would have said that. They would have said, and who the hell do you think you are? You telling me what to do and how to do it? Shit. No, it's from God. I was sitting there up that mountain, praying and meditating for 40 days. And suddenly God appeared to me in a vision, surrounded by burning flames and what have you. And he carved these words into these tablets, and when I looked at it, I thought I was struck in awe, and I thought I have to present this to my people. By saying these are the words of God, he kind of forced people to respect these set of laws. He tried to create harmony in the people that he was leading through the desert. It's the same with all holy books. You don't say it's mine, I wrote it, and I'm very authoritative. No, these are the words from God. Second sutra. Svatmarama Yogin, having saluted his Lord and Guru, teaches the Hatha Vidya solely for the attainment of Raja Yoga. Did you attend the introduction workshop? I kind of teasingly asked you, how many yogas are there? 10? 100? 1,000? No, only one. There is only one yoga. It's a system with many elements, but in the end, there is only one yoga. You find that here in this sutra. Hatha Yoga is a stage that leads to Raja Yoga. Now, when I use those words in this way, it sounds superficial. Hatha Yoga leads to Raja Yoga. Hatha Yoga is the framework, systematic framework of philosophy, but mainly practical exercises, physical and mental practical exercises that leads to not Raja Yoga. We call it Raja Yoga, it has the label Raja Yoga, but it leads to the transformation. It leads to the opening up of the crown chakra with all its wonderful characteristics. It leads to the awakening of the human spirit, of consciousness. That sounds like superficial or even a luxury. It's not. People who transform, people who awaken, start functioning completely different and have a huge impact on society in one way or another. It starts with your family, your neighbors, but also it extends to your colleagues, to the people that you work with, to the people that you meet in the supermarket. Everybody is affected by the way that you have transformed in a positive way. That's what Raja Yoga means. It's the transformation. Svatmarama Yogin, having saluted his Lord and Guru, teaches the Hatha Vidya solely for the attainment of Raja Yoga. it refers back to the first sutra where he invokes the power, the higher power, the inspiration from heaven, from above. In Sutra 2, he then gives praise, not to himself, but to God or the divine, Shiva, who was teaching yoga on the beach and shared it through matcha to mankind, basically. But he's also saying that I'm not writing this book to make money, I'm writing this book to spread yoga, to spread this wonderful science to anybody who wants to listen, anybody who is open to this wonderful science. Sutra 3, 4, and 5 to 9 basically continue what he started in Sutra 1 and 2. Let's have a look. Sutra 3. To those who wander in the darkness of conflicting doctrines, being ignorant of Raja Yoga, the most compassionate Svatmarama Yogin offers the light of Hatha Vidya. Darkness is ignorance. The lack of wisdom, insight, intuition, all those wonderful qualities from the crown chakra. Light is energy in the crown chakra, which in your meditations you will start seeing light there above and around your head. Those who wander in the darkness of conflicting doctrines. Do you watch the news? Do you follow a little bit what is happening in society around us? There you see so many people in the darkness of conflicting doctrines. And the longer you practice yoga, the more you are baffled by how on earth it is possible that those people don't see the reality, that they don't see the truth. But then you forget, or have forgotten, that years ago, before you opened up your consciousness, you were just as ignorant as they now still are. And when you understand that, you realize the importance of presenting these kind of systems, not only yoga, there are many. Education is also a form of helping people to reach the light. How important it is to spread that. It's also one of the reasons why I refuse to go along with all those yoga teachers that have ended up teaching a very weak subtraction of what yoga really is about. The modern yoga fashion that is about physical appearance. It's about perfection, about athleticism, and has nothing to do with the wonderful developments that yoga truly has to offer. That does not mean it's wrong. It's always good to do some form of exercise. And all those people that wandering in the darkness of conflicting doctrines you also find in yoga studios, those who are meant to be, they find their way, like you did to Magic Pond or another yoga teacher that presents yoga in the ancient tradition. So there is no good and no bad, it just is, and it will always lead to something. There is a constant process going on of evolution, and people that end up in yoga studios where a distorted form of yoga is taught, they are in a process of finding the truth, finding the light, sooner or later. Fourth sutra, Matsyendra, Goraksha, and others knew well the Hatha Vidya. The yogin Svatmarama learned it by their favor. Remember Matsyendra? That was the fish that became king and the first human being. What is Svatmarama doing here? He is confirming his lineage. So here he does establish that he has some authority to share this, to write about this, to teach this science, the Hatha Vidya, the science of the sun and the moon, the science of life. Matsyendra and Goraksha stand at the very foundation of what real yoga is today. And Sutra 5 to 9 extend that lineage. That starts with Shiva on the beach, Matsyendra overhearing the teachings from Shiva, then continuing with Shabara, Ananda, Bhairava, Kaurangi, Mina, Goraksha, Virupaksha, Bilashaya, Mantana, Bhairava, Siddhi, Buddha, Kantadi, Korantaka, Surananda, Siddhapata, Karpati, Kaneri, Pujapada, Nityanata, Niranjana, Kapalin, Bindunata, Kakakandishvara, Alama, Prabhudeva, Kodakolin, Tintini, Banukin, Naradeva, Kanda, Kapalika, and many other great Siddhas, having conquered time by the power of Hatha Yoga, move about the universe. First of all, when people ask, sometimes happens that people ask you, what lineage are you from? You say, Patanjali. He is not included here in this list, summed up by Svatmarama, but our lineage is Patanjali. The last 9 lessons of this course, we will study chapter 2 of Patanjali. And in the advanced course, the whole book of Patanjali is studied, of course, all chapters. So, all these and many other great Siddhas. Siddhas are people who have fully transformed. People, yogis, yoginis like you and me, who have transformed, who have opened up the crown chakra and started living from their heart. They have conquered time. What does that mean, conquering time? Compare yourself with your parents and your grandparents. How do you view them? They're different. The way they think even is different. The way they act, the way they speak, the way they see the world is different. Why? Because we are in the dark. We are a product of our time, our generation. And life is constantly evolving. And this evolution has been enormously sped up, accelerated by technology. When you conquer time, you have developed one of the cities, being able to see not only the past, but also the future. You'll be able to see the world around you in a universal way, beyond the way that you were conditioned according to your generation. As your parents and your grandparents have been conditioned in different ways according to their generation, but also your children and your grandchildren will be, again, different. And you will rise above that and be able to see. You become a universal human being that can see the perspective from generations 5,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, but also extending that into the future. You're still a product of your time, your generation, but you're able to see that, to realize that. That is what conquering time means. So it's not just a mysterious phrase, it has a deep meaning. And they move about the universe. Star Trek comes to mind. Star Wars comes to mind. That is because we are a product of this generation. My parents or grandparents would have something totally different coming to mind when reading something like that. But who is moving about the universe? Well, it is believed, especially in Oriental philosophy, in Buddhism, that we reincarnate. And with every reincarnation, we evolve. We climb this ladder from the lowest animal instinct to the highest wisdom. And according to Buddhism, that takes 1 million reincarnations, 1 million lives. Yoga is a shortcut. Yoga says you don't have to suffer 1 million lives in ignorance, making all the mistakes that everybody makes that leads to so much suffering. Yoga gives you a huge shortcut. The story in Buddhism goes that if you fulfill that whole traject, you reach enlightenment and you are not reborn. You don't reincarnate anymore. Where do you go? Not your physical body, your spirit. Where does your spirit go? It goes up there and it stays there. The story goes that as long as there is disharmony, imbalance between the Shiva and Shakti energies, you continue to reincarnate and you have to go through another life on earth to learn, to grow. That, according to philosophy, is the purpose of life. To learn in order to grow. With yoga, yoga opens the door to enormous learning and growth because of your awakening consciousness. But when you have reached the highest stage, you are totally sattva. And when you're totally sattva, you don't manifest into matter anymore. Your energy is up there. It doesn't condense, contract, and end up in physical matter anymore. when you die physically, your spirit rises up. So in that try to see it like this, in that very last life where you reach Buddha-ship or Christhood, your body dies one more time, one last time, your spirit rises up and not come back anymore. Funny story, eh? But where do you get your wisdom from? Where do you get your insights from? Where did Moses receive the clever insights to design a set of rules that will help to organize his unruly people? Because it didn't come from a book. Where does that inspiration comes from? The word, do you understand what inspiration means? It comes from the Latin language, and it literally means, it comes from in spiritus. Being inspired comes from the Latin in spiritus. It means in spirit, in the spirit. There are many illiterate people who, when you talk with them, seem to be very wise, have great insight, but they're not capable of reading a book. That knowledge, that consciousness has to come from somewhere. It comes from those who move about the universe. You have completed your 1 million lives to reach heaven, but it doesn't mean that your task is finished. You become a counselor, believe it or not. And they are up there moving about the universe. And the moment that you open up, they will be there to pour in insight and wisdom into you. There is an expression that says, when you are ready, the teacher will come to you. There are so many people living in the darkness of conflicting doctrines. Sutra 3. They have no connection. They keep in a cyclical way, in a never-ending cycle, keep making the same mistakes again and again, and therefore continue to suffer. Which is the main premise of Buddhism. Life is suffering. Because we are ignorant. Yoga destroys the ignorance, and with that, the suffering diminishes. The moment that you open up your crown chakra, you have a channel that allows the insights from those who move about the universe to come to you. That is inspiration, literally. It sounds far-fetched, but if you look at the logic, it makes total sense. And in fact, it's a wonderful way of looking at yourself and life in general. Sutra 10, and the last one for this session. The Hatha Yoga is a sheltering monastery for those scorched by all the types of pain. To those engaged in the practice of every kind of yoga, Hatha Yoga is like the tortoise that supports the world, that supports life. I kind of already explained this. Life is considered to be a valley of tears. Hatha Yoga is a sheltering monastery for those scorched by the suffering in that valley of tears. The sutra uses the word pain, and when we think about pain, We think about when we get hurt, when we bump our head into the doorpost or cut a finger when we are cooking, or emotional pain when we have a conflict with a friend or a partner or a sibling. But in yoga, the kind of pains that I just mentioned are on the top of the register. But there are many subtle pains that we don't see as such. But in yoga, everything that is disharmonious is in fact considered pain. And this is very important in a practical sense, because you become more sensitive, you become more conscious. But one thing that you have to consciously implement, one thing that you have to consciously start doing from today, is to consciously pay attention to what you feel in any kind of situation and circumstance. Because we have a tendency to just go about daily life just thinking it's daily life. But there are so many signals that we get throughout the days, very subtle and very gross. The gross ones are easy to recognize, but it's the 90% under the surface, the subtle ones, that we have to learn to see. Because there you really start taking control of your life. Because every little disturbance, every little bit of nervousness, every little bit of irritation, every little bit of anger, every little bit of sadness, it tells you something about the situation you are in. And when you realize that consciously, you can change that. You can take control and change that. With all our education, we are still blind to that information, so we keep living the same irritation, anger, hatred, frustration, sadness again and again and again. So whenever you feel, when you feel off, when you feel some disturbance mentally or physically, some disruption, some irritation, some emotion, pay attention. What is it trying to tell me? I've told you this before. We will continue to talk about it further down the road. Because this is one of the big developments that yoga gives us if we pay attention. There are many people who practice yoga, also people who practice yoga correctly, who do not efficiently implement this into their daily lives and their functioning. Because their teacher didn't tell them or draw their attention to that important element of your development. Living from the heart starts with this. Pay attention to what you feel. Investigate. Where is this coming from? Why am I feeling like this? What has caused it? And a very important thing that we must stop doing is saying, oh, it's just pure coincidence. There is no coincidence. Everything has a reason and a purpose. Everything has a cause. So that is one thing we need to stop doing, saying that it's pure coincidence. Another thing we have to stop doing is looking at other people. Whatever situation it is that you are in, and no matter how responsible other people are for your suffering, it is a lost exercise to blame other people for the situation you are in. Even if they are to blame, it's useless. The only way to take control and bring about change is to purely look at yourself. The pain that you feel, you do not direct it back to those people that are involved. You just very rationally draw conclusions from it. Why am I feeling it? Okay, there are other people involved, but what can I do? What is it telling about me? How did I end up in this situation, and what can I do to avoid it in the future? My whole life has been about this. The universe sent me to Korea to put me to the test even more, with a language that I didn't understand, and a culture that I couldn't understand. And every time I ended up suffering, the conclusion was, I have to become more independent. What do I need to do for that? I didn't blame the people that I was working with or that I was in a relationship with, or no. How did I get here? And what can I do to make it better? So I learned Korean, and I became independent, and it was a long journey. And now I'm bored. I should be very careful, because the moment you say that, you get another load of misery. But yesterday I was at home and I was feeling a little bit depressed, and I thought, what a luxury. Because when I'm struggling, when I'm busy with challenges, which basically my whole life has been, I have a military discipline to take care of myself. And whatever it is that I need to do. And now I'm bored. Strange, huh? But that never lasts long. I know that, so I might as well just enjoy it for as long as it lasts. Because new challenges will come, and but you become more and more ready to deal with it. But my main conclusion time and time again was, I have to be totally independent. Then I can be there for other people. As long as I need people, the relationship cannot be pure. There are conditions, and we talked about unconditional love and the value of that. But unconditional love is difficult, if not impossible, as long as you need people. It explains also why yogis generally are quirky, eccentric, stubborn people, because you have no other choice. You think about everything consciously, and everything that you do has a logic. And we use the word common sense a lot in daily life, but common sense is very uncommon. Have you realized that? But you as a yogi will be one of those that possess common sense. Questions? Okay, then we continue reading chapter 1 after the meditation, after the break. Let's have a short break, then we start with asana.